I'd like to welcome everybody today. We do have I want to call him a special guest, but I don't want to call him a special guest because Ray is very much part of our team. He is our senior Indigenous programming advisor and consultant. Just as he was given that title, shortly after he was whisked away to his home of Bear Island, some 10 hours drive from here, Ray?
I'd say 7.
7, okay. Yeah. I was exaggerating.
Yeah. By ice, well, you go across the lake.
Yes, it will be ice soon. Otherwise, we would have had him here much earlier and much more frequently, so now we have to kind of grab him when he's in town. Before I continue my introduction of Ray, though, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the fact that we are on Indigenous traditional territory. In Scarborough, there have been Indigenous folks here for literally thousands of years. We know through our local archaeologists that is the case. Most recently, we recognize being on the traditional territory of the Mississauga, of the new credit, with other First Nations having come before that time. I am very honored to introduce our guest today and a good friend as well. I met Ray, I guess, about 3.5 to 4 years ago at an Ontario Psychological Association conference. We were colleagues, but we hadn't actually met then because of our connection through Anishinaabe Health, Toronto. And within an hour and 15 minutes of a meeting, sitting down over coffee, I discovered a long-time passion and vision that Ray had, and very important programming notion in terms of land-based programming for mental health, addictions, and overall Indigenous healing. So I've asked him to present on that, but I've also asked him to just speak on reconciliation. We all recognize that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, with its 90 some odd recommendations, has recommendations on every single level, from multi-government levels to levels involving people not just of First Nations, but of original settlers and immigrants from across the world that have come since then. And I know that Ray has, I think, some very special, important messages that we can all reflect on in that context. So I've asked him to speak about that, and then from there to discuss land-based programs. The other context is that Ray is the chair of the Center for Family, Child, and Adolescent Advancement. And it's through this organization, which has become really an Indigenous organization with pretty well all directors on the board, including myself, identifying in some respect in terms of Indigenous affiliations. And through that, we are really trying to promote the land-based program. You'll see various images that will basically be cycling throughout this talk of the site that we have in mind, which is Georgian Bay, the mouth of the Key River in Georgian Bay, and the Key River. So some very, very good news that I just shared with Ray last night, and a letter that basically we've received just 2 days ago from Minister Philippot, who is the Minister of Indigenous Services, the brand new ministry. The Ministry of Indigenous and Northern Affairs has now been split. Ray and I had the pleasure and honor of meeting Minister Carolyn Bennett about, I think maybe 2.5 years ago, Ray? Mm-hmm. And yeah, we had a very good meeting with her. She was very excited about this, and I subsequently met her this past summer and tried to get a follow-up meeting. And a month and a half went by before I found out that the ministry was to be split, and that kind of began to understand why she hadn't offered a second meeting. And this letter kind of explains the reason why, because the portfolio is now being changed to this new ministry. And I just want to share this with the group and again congratulate Ray, because obviously it's very top of the radar. The letter is being forwarded to a number of other ministers, federal ministers, and there's a very positive support for the project. And so we are hoping that in not too long, with our 4 or 5 different proposals that we have in, that one of them will come through and that Ray's vision will become reality. Without further ado, I want to again introduce former Chief Ray Catt, our Indigenous advisor and chair of the Center for Family, Child and Family Advancement. Ray?
Kwekwe. Bonjour. Hello. Ani. Havala. My name is Bijou. I'm from Temagami, or otherwise known as Temagami Anishinaabe, which is 60 miles north of North Bay. That's where our homeland is, where my people have lived for thousands of years. In being raised in my community, I was raised Roman Catholic through my mother, and but within that time, going back to the land and living with my parents, I come to know the strength and the belief of the land in regards to what it has done to help us live. So I come to know our traditional beliefs are connected to the land. So I'm very much a traditional believer, and so when I left my community, I come to understand the meaning behind the medicines. And the one medicine I carry is the sema, which is tobacco. And it's said when we hold that tobacco, our Creator can hear our prayers. And so our belief system is very much spiritual in context, and so when in living off the land, I come to really believe that, and knowing what the land has given us. So I have a little prayer I'm going to say in regards to what I'm sharing with you, because it is very much connected to that. Oh, bajum shumas. Ajinakash being more time hanging. Ajinakash Nishnaabe. Ajinakash Shaganash. The Kamanan. Chime Gwachman of Nwazan. But thank you for this beautiful day. The richness of the air, the cold air that gives us this life. And it connects us to the trees of where that air comes from Mother Earth, each and every day, and that it helps us to survive. Oh, miigwech. So within our belief systems, everything is interconnected. The air is from the trees. So we come to know that beings are deeper than what they are. The animals and the insects, it's not just an insect, it's not just a tree, it's a spirit. And so we come to respect in terms of our interrelations with that and with each other, and how we're able to take care of each other. And that's very much within the beliefs of our people, is that for thousands of years we've been living off the land, taking care of each other. You know, taking care of things we need to do to survive, because we need to help each other. You know, when somebody's sick, we go and bring them medicine, we bring them food, we help them with the things they need. And that's very much a traditional way of life. And the culture is the beauty of it in terms of the belief of what it can give us. So we open our minds up and our doors to that, and helping each other. And it's very much within our beliefs that that's how we're going to need to survive, how we survived in the past and how we're going to survive into the future. Not only as Anishinaabe people, but all people. We're all going to need each other because you know, the way things are going in Mother Earth, Mother Earth is cleansing herself in different ways. But as a result of that, the young and the old, the little ones and the old and the sick are going to perish because of that, because they're unable to survive those kind of dilemmas of hurricanes and tornadoes and whatnot, of what could be happening out there. We're very aware of these things, you know, because it's within our Anishinaabe prophecies. We see ahead of time in terms of that, in terms of our Anishinaabe beliefs, and we connect with it. And so I've been working in this field of social work for the last 30 years in mental health, and I traveled around the province of Ontario. And during that time, I come to know this vision that I'm sharing with you, and I've been nurturing it, developing it, building on it. And I come to know it very much as very much a part of me, because I always go back to where I learned it from, the land, my parents, my grandparents, and of course the people within my community. But we do know that our people have been through a lot over the years, though. There's this word that come out called reconciliation. And what is that? It's healing. You know, that's the makeup of that word, you know, of how we can really define it, you know. Sometimes words are beyond us, but it's right in here, you know, it's part of us. So, and what does that mean to heal? And it's to take care of those hurts, you know, put medicine on those hurts, find a medicine, work with those medicines. And so the objective of sharing this is to bridge the gap of understandings of how we can coexist together and help each other. And so that, you know, we can have a better future for future generations to come. You know, and that's, I am now a grandfather. You know, I have a 80-year-old grandson and a 2-year-old granddaughter, and I'm connecting with my son and his family, and I'm bringing them to my, you know, up to my community. They live in North Bay, but that's my responsibility as a grandfather to fulfill what we call rites of passages. You know, we have rites of passage that we go through in life, from being a child to an older child to an adolescence to all those different stages in life. We have different things, different responsibilities that we go through. And so I'm at that stage of being a grandfather now, and I have a responsibility to fulfill that role and guide my grandchildren so they can know who they are, you know, and how they're connected to our history. And so the history of my last name, somebody else, Raymond Cat, you know, who the heck is Raymond Cat? You know, Raymond Cat, that name's been changed a few times since 1492. So that's why I introduced my name as Raymond, as Bijou. Bijou is when the Jesuits and ministers came and they wanted to give us our names. You know, they wanted to translate. And our people have come to know that our language is very much alive. It's very descriptive. It's very experiential. So when they defined our name, they told them wildcat, because the wildcat is related to the animal that lives in the bush, the wildcat. And the wildcat in this day and age to everybody is the lynx. You know, so if they were going to give me my last name, and it would have been Raymond Lynx. You know, but anyway, they kept the cat. They lost the wild part, even though wild is still with me. But anyway, so that's been changed over the years, and I guess you could say I'm the first one that's going to be going and opening that door to translating my name back to Bijou from cat. So it's going back to that, you know, in terms of that, and a lot of people in my community are surprised that I'm doing that, because they very much in their own different spaces in regards to their recovery and their way of looking at it in terms of this path that of how they've been affected by colonization and this whole path of reconciliation. Each and every person is, you know, on their own path, and we're all different stages of our identity. Even though we're in our little community of Bear Island, and I travel around and I find they're all at different stages in terms of that path of getting back to that identity. So the genograms, in terms of that I see up in our library up there, you could see at the top, you know, in terms of the history of going back to 1492 of how our name was changed from Bijou to Wildcat, and then Cat back in the early 1900s. It was K-A-T-T. They changed it to then, and so it's that part of it. That's part of the reality of. So that's one story. There are other stories out there amongst our Anishinaabe people who are of similar or of the same, and but like I say, we're all different, have different backgrounds. My parents, they're both residential school survivors, and my mother, she went to residential school, that's Spanish, which is near Sudbury. So anyway, she came back. She was from Nipissing Reserve, and she's French and Ojibwe, and my father married her, and so there are four of us who were raised by our parents, and my father was in residential school in our community. You know, you could tell he wasn't very happy in the pictures that we see that are out today, and so they were both oppressed in regards to this Roman Catholic belief system, and they were punished, you know, whenever they wanted to practice their ways or in their language. So the result of that, you know, for myself and my siblings, is that we weren't taught the language, you know, and that's the reality of that. So these are the different impacts of what residential school has caused, you know, in terms of it. And the purpose of residential school, the whole plan there was genocide and take the Union out of the Union, and very much real within itself. That's what it was. That's what the result was. But as well, you know, the anger and all the different results of their punishment when they were going through that school, when they were raising us, they abused alcohol. And as a result, we were abused by them and by our uncles and aunties and whoever else that we came across, you know, physically, psychologically, you know. And so it was very, very traumatic at times, being small and watching this happen and wondering why, you know, what's going on. So So when we reached our adolescent ages, we only found ourselves mimicking the behaviors. We're copying them. You know, we're getting involved in the alcohol and drugs and being violent, and so a lot of people within my age group, they're like, within my generation, there were like 2 of us that graduated. The rest are still in our community, you know, and I go back there and I see them there, but that's the other reality of it. They ended up leaving school, you know, because of the use of alcohol and drugs and teenage pregnancy, and so they remain caught there, you know, and so during my time of realizing this cycle I was caught in of using drugs and alcohol and violence and blacking out, I come to realize that near-death experiences is what I didn't want. When it came to a point of where my nephew almost died as a result of my drinking and driving. So I changed at that point in regards to that because I didn't want to. I thank the Creator for the second chance of being able to take control of that and take care of these things. So I went and, you know, at about that time I found this school that I became aware of that was offering this program called the Native Canadian program, which is out of Outward Bound. And I was working for our community that time as a assistant band manager or a community infrastructure manager, and I worked there for 3 years doing that. But even though I was doing it, I was still caught in this cycle. And then I come across Outward Bound, and next thing you know, I went on an Outward Bound course out in Thunder Bay, north of Thunder Bay, way back in the bush on Black Sturgeon Lake. And I spent a month there with them and understood that the land had a lot to give within these kind of teachings that they have there in terms of what they do. The land has a lot to offer in regards to this, and they utilize high-impact activities. There's also low-impact activities that the land can teach. And what it plays on within itself, or being in that environment, that wilderness environment, is it plays on anxiety, fear, and the one other issue is trust, because trust is a real issue within our Anishinaabe communities. You know, it's almost like walking on eggshells sometimes. So it's being able to realize and understand what environment we go into. And I return back there, and I understand that that's there. But I've become more equipped within my profession and understanding what actually happened, what's going on. So within that, I found my sobriety. I went to treatment and found, you know, our traditional beliefs connected with the process of recovery. So I very much found the medicines within these beliefs in terms of how it helps me as an individual. And I say it very much within that in terms of me because, like I say, some of our people are caught in the dilemma of the traditional and religion, and they're not really sure where to go. So I come from me in regards to what works for me. And I tell them, you know, if that works for you, then great. You know, if that helps you stay balanced and healthy, then great. You know, I support it. But in a way, these are the kind of things that are happening. One sister is older than us. My mother had her out of wedlock, I guess you could say. She had her when she was like 14 years old, and so she had to give her up, you know, and so. And she's our older sister, and so my brother, he's a year older than me, and my other sister's in the community, and my other brother's here in Toronto somewhere on the street. And so the only ones that are not using is our oldest sister who was away, and so it's just her and I. The other 3 are still using. And so, you know, from time to time I run into them and I visit with them, but I don't associate with them when they're using. And that's my own way of being able to deal with that kind of stuff and let them know where I stand on that. So the aspect around the going to live on the Kemanan, the Kemanan is a word that our people come to understand within. What does it mean, the Kemanan? The Kemanan means our land, and it isn't our land. We are of the land. We're part of it. So, like I say, to translate, it is different within itself. So when people say, "Well, it's our land," yeah, it's not really our land. It's we are of the land. And then that's a relationship within that. So when I was being raised by my parents, the good thing that they've done with me or with us is they took us in the bush from the ages of when I was 8 years old right up until I was 14 years old. We went in the bush for 3 months of the year, living in there from this time of year till the ice froze over in the wintertime when we walked back home, which is about 6-7 miles. So we live in the bush and we live off the land. And so we learned a lot in doing that. And we really loved that because there was no liquor store. There was no other people to drink with my parents. So we all had a role to play in living out there, setting snares for rabbits and hunting partridge and cutting wood and all the different things you need to do to survive out there. And my brother and I took turns going with our father, checking the traps and hunting. So we get up early in the morning and come back at dark at night. So we walk all day on snowshoes and we take the dogs with us. So that's what we did. And so we learned a lot of skills in being able to survive out there on the land. The mosquitoes, the animals, and dealing with thin ice and dealing with animals. So we all come to know that the land or the animals, they don't want nothing to do with it. They'll run the other way as soon as they see you. And my brother and I kind of laugh because people are very timid and scared when they go into the bush, wondering if someone's going to come along and jump them, But we know that the animals really don't want nothing to do with us. They'll go the other way. So we have respect in terms of boundaries and understanding boundaries within that. So we understand these things around us. So when I came to, so these skills that I worked with within Outward Bound, it helped with me being able to become an instructor at Outward Bound because I was very comfortable in that environment. So the healing and recovery part of it, each and every day I learned something, and the other individual that really helped me along the way, though, too, when we were in our community, we had somebody who was there to rescue us, and that was our grandmother. We went to her grandma, and she'd feed us and provide us with a safe place. So she'd take care of us while my uncles and aunties and my parents were carrying on. And and that's the reality of that, of the causations of that residential school, So in 1986, that's when my change happened in regards to, and that was in my mid-20s when the traditional healing from the land became very real within me and understanding what we really do have there. And so I come to Outward Bound as a student first. I went through a course, and I was one of the first ones to go through a course with Outward Bound. And it was through the Keith Penner Report. And at that time, they got monies from the government to deal with the suicides that were going on. And at that time, there was an epidemic going on in Wakimakong. And I come to realize during my social work career that I come across those clients years down the road of why they were committing suicide. And it's very real, in terms of what, the dilemma of this reconciliation thing. It's very, very deep within itself. There's this fellow named Ralph Rowe who abused a lot of young men, well, not young men, children between the ages of 6 to 13 or 14. And he started off in Wakimakong. So I put the 2 and 2 together of why these guys were committing suicide. It's because they became adolescents. At that age, their sexuality, their sexual identity comes out, and next year, all these things were happening, and they were taking their lives because of their shame and guilt and the pain that they were feeling at that time. So during my social work career, when I moved out to Sioux Lookout, what do I find out? Ralph Rowe's been there too. He's been to a lot of those Anishinaabe communities throughout northwestern Ontario. And I had clients, his victims, that I worked with as a mental health counselor. Because, I come to connect with these things and understand that they come across I get these cases and I find that they're either perpetrators or they're victims because of that. So that's kind of going off topic in regards to where I was going in terms of the Outward Bound stuff, but it's it kind of fits into my path in terms of this. So when I worked at Outward Bound, in my path in terms of working at Outward Bound, we developed this program. It was named by Harvey Anderson, who's an elder from out that way. I forgot the name of the community he's from. But anyway, he named the program was called Giwe Quinn. And Outward Bound, that was a program within Outward Bound. It was basically to bring youth together. And how I got a phone call from Terry Swan. No, not Terry Swan. I got a phone call from Ruth Goldman, who was my instructor at the time, and she asked me if I wanted to come work as an instructor with Outward Bound. And then I came there and I met with Terry Swan, who was my co-instructor at the time. And so to this day, I translated that to Ojibwe, with meaning Bigiwayan Nekemanan. Bigiwayan Nekemanan means coming home to our land in Ojibwe. And so the content and development that Terry and I gave to that program, because they didn't have nothing in that program for what it was just an Outward Bound curriculum. They have their curriculum. We put it in the Anishinaabe. We brought our tobacco. We brought our identity. We brought our story. And Terry Swan and I were both counselors and professionals. So we added that aspect to it while we were doing the workshops. Terry is out counseling. While she was doing the workshops, I was out counseling with the individuals who were in that course. Because we come to understand these different things that, in terms of this, what happened to our people. These are 10 youth who come together every summer. Terry and I would spend a week with them, and we get to know them. And you can see the medicines working within the land of how that rock climbing, whitewater paddling, and the wilderness environment is having on them. They're strangers. We meet them at the airport. Around the middle of the course, they're like this, and at the end of the program, they're like that. They're like a family. You could see that. How close they are bonding in terms of their story and their path, and they're supporting each other from people from all across this country. We have people from BC. The Inuit, the Dene, Labrador Dene, and Halifax, and here in Toronto even. Of course, down in Chippewa of the Thames. But anyway, so Terry Swan we come to know each other really well. Her background, she was adopted. When she was a child, she was taken away. So, but she come to recover herself in terms of that and being able to. So her and I became really close, and she works here in Toronto now. And but her and I met at Outward Bound working as co-instructors, and we did that for like 5 or 6 years, doing those courses with them. And we incorporated the Anishinaabe content. We changed the curriculum and made it more powerful in regards to that. In terms of Anishinaabe people were really comfortable. And during that time, Terry and I brought in individuals, other Anishinaabe counselors, social workers, recreational people, and we trained them to become instructors. So when we left, we thought, okay, you guys got this now. They said, yeah, okay. You're gonna be okay? Yeah. And only to find they end up leaving too to start their own careers. So after they left the program, they can't deliver the same program. But there are links going on now of where I'm in contact with Outward Bound now, and they want me to partnership with them and help them. And they run a couple of courses through our hunting territories, and so I'm pretty sure we're going to partnership with them within the next couple of years in a way, in different ways, because they do have a solid vehicle in regards to a structure to this. So it's a good learning to learn the hard skills. The soft skills of Anishinaabe is not a given. It takes a lot of work to get to that point in regards to being able to utilize those beliefs, those gifts, those ways. So the Truth and Reconciliation recommendations, as soon as they came out, I was all over them, reading them. Holy jeez, we got something going on here now. And I seen the cultural competency section in terms of this, but still, yet to this day, I still have qualms with the chiefs, even though I was a chief at one point in time. I still have my. I'm very much an individual in terms of my viewpoint, in terms of, you want to just talk about this or you want to do something. And because this concept, this vision, I shared it with some of the chiefs, and they just talk, oh yes, we need that. When we hear of a crisis going up in the north, they call a big meeting and, we're going to have a strategy. Okay. What's the result of the strategy? What are you going to do? And I often present this model. Let's do something. Let's get back to the land. Here's something that's a social, economic, viable approach that's very much can subsist on its own after a year. After a year of you have a core staff of getting them trained, you're able to develop and grow and expand and build on it. My background is addictions and mental health, and I'm pretty sure I can grow and develop in that area and create something. And I utilize the medicine wheel. I have my own model that I developed over the years while I was working in mental health and addictions, and I had to do that when I worked at Anishinaabe Health because they're still learning too. And so it is a learning curve that our people are going through in terms of what works and what doesn't work. And so it's trying to being able to put two together in terms of the contemporary society, the Western beliefs into Anishinaabe beliefs. Sometimes it clashes, and next thing you know, it becomes difficult. So while I wrote Bound, I come to know that we all fall into different identity diversifications. And being Anishinaabe, yeah, I'm Anishinaabe, but there's different diversifications amongst our people. And I'm status. I have a status card. I get my medical paid for to come to here in Toronto. I came to Toronto to see a couple of doctors, but as well as I get my education paid for and that kind of stuff. But these are all within our treaty obligations in terms of the relationship that come with the land, people being able to use our territories. And so it is part of that relationships in terms of how, and we coexist, but we still hunt and fish off our land. So the status people are everywhere. We know who we are, and a lot of us live in our community. Then we have the second generation status people who are born and raised in cities. They've never been to the community, but they're born and raised and have a status card. That's another Anishinaabe identity diversification. And some people, wow, I don't even know who I am. I haven't been into my community. And so it becomes a very complicated feeling kind of thing of feeling shame or guilt or kind of stuff, because they don't know. And sometimes they're put on the spot. Who are you? And that kind of, how you know, the kind of stuff is because their skin is brown. So the other one is the non-status. The non-status are the ones through blood quantum, under the Indian Act. If my children keep marrying outside of our Anishinaabe community, within Anishinaabe nations, the blood becomes watered down and eventually lose that status, those rights to those benefits that we get. So that's the dynamic of the status and non-status, and it causes very much a division within our communities because we should be able to help the people who we're connected with. And the government doesn't see it that way. They created this Bill C-31, and so our community is very much having issues over that, And right now my community is going through membership code that they got to develop in order for them to move into negotiations in terms of getting an agreement around our land. But until that time, in my context in terms of Anishinaabe, because we have like 4,000 square miles of territory, my family, we're north of Lake Temagami, Diamond Lake, Lady Evelyn, Maple Mountain, down into Ababaka Lake, which is the old growth forest. That's the Bijou territory. And each family has their own territory like that. And it's been passed on from generation to generation, and that's like maybe 200 square miles of hunting territory that's within the Bijou family. So until they have a settlement, the status quo doesn't apply in terms of what they say that, they say they developed these boundaries in regards to a park in my hunting territories. They didn't come to ask the Bijou family. It was the duty to consult fit into this. They didn't. So it doesn't apply to us. We don't accept the status quo. We go and hunt whenever we please. We fish whenever we please. We go get wood and do what we need to do to survive and live off that land. And under the Constitution, we do have that right. It is within the Constitution that we have hunting and fishing rights. So it's built within our families. So we have 14 families within our hunting territories. So that's something that we have, and that's something I'm working with within my own community, encouraging our families to go and build. And so that's what I plan on doing while I'm up there, is building a cabin up in my hunting territory. I built homes back in my younger days, and was into construction. But so the other diversifications that come with this is the Métis, and then you have the residential school. This is all the social stuff: the residential school, CAS, and the jails. They're all interconnected in terms of why one fits into the other, because they're all lost in these different institutions. And it's very real, and like my brother, Malcolm, he's got into that residential school. He's on the street, so he's very mixed up, He's, So prior to my mother passing, maybe 5 years, she was starting to lose control of her system in terms of being able to take care of herself. So I helped her out during that. And at that time, I did my healing with her in terms of forgiving her for what happened between us. And she said sorry as well. So our relationship was really, connected until she passed away. But to this day, within our system, in terms of our traditional beliefs, she's still with me today. She's still here and up here. And that's why our traditional beliefs within that, and how in depth we are in terms of our connection. So the jail systems, and when you look at the statistics, the jail system is like 25-30%. CAS the same way of the caseload, meaning we make up that percentage nationally as a people, and we only make up like 4% of the population in Canada. So something's wrong, and I come to challenge the place I worked at before, which is Anishinaabe Health. What's happening here? What are we doing that we're not doing to change this? Because the statistics haven't changed. Anishinaabe Health had been there even before I arrived there, because I worked there for 5 years, and the statistics are still the same today. So something needs to change somewhere. So there's no quick fix to all this, to dealing with the suicides and all the crises they're having in the north. There's no quick fix to it. It takes the development of such a program like this, and it'll take time for people to go through it and develop that spirit and develop that content and develop those helpers, and then let it grow from there. It's not going to happen like that. And I think that's where I've been running into that door. Whenever I raised it, that I ran into the door saying, you're not providing us with a quick fix in regards to dealing with this. So they send up those social workers and those crisis workers up north. They stay up there for 3 months, 6 months. They come back within a year, they're having a crisis over again. The same thing, it's a cycle, it's a Band-Aid. So we have to get to the core of the issue of bringing them and getting running through a program and figuring out what's going on. Why are they feeling suicidal? Why are they feeling angry? So we have to get to that core and being able to try and change that. Not to say it's going to really change everything, but we're doing something in regards to that and changing the path and developing a stronger community. So the colonization, so the other one is the Notsas and the Inuit. So the colonization is almost like what I call the tossed salad. So when colonization happened, everybody was, we were just tossed everywhere, and we ended up where we ended up, and it's, it's just the way it is. And some of our people were even adopted, and they ended up overseas, over in England, and that, I hear stories about that, they end up in the States. So we're on different paths of recovery and healing. So the vision that I picked up along the way, that I've been working with and nurturing, is to utilize the land as a means to revitalize the Anishinaabe tradition and culture. That's the vision. I've been nurturing that and developing it, and I practiced it over the years. Out in Thunder Bay, when I worked out there, I worked with the Sheboygan Health Authority. For 3 years in a row, I worked with youth. I brought them out to this camp. The first year was a little rough. Second year was better. The second year was so amazing the way that happened, because it takes me back to this young lady named Stacy. She's from Sandy Lake. Get this, she was a high school student, and I was an instructor. I took the Anishinaabe Askies to 10 of those youth who were just getting out of high school. They were in grade 12, 13. And I took them in the bush and spent a week with them. and Stacy was one of them. And so yeah, okay, you know, and then we went on our way, and years later, I kept in contact with Stacy, and next year, you know, she got her outdoor rec and she was working in her community, and I said, "Hey, Stacy, you want to come work with me at this camp?" She was my co-director for this camp and looking after all the girls, you know, because it is very real that, you know, that there's a safety aspect in regards to girls feeling comfortable with males and females. So she came and helped me out, and so to this day, Stacy is, you know, she's a nurse now, out in Thunder Bay, and so you know, so she's quite a role model for her community. She only, you know, she's little Stacy, but anyway, so this is all evidence-based in regards to this content that I'm talking about. Stacy, you know, she went through the program and she's developed that context, being able to do something with herself. And of course, her background is her parents were separated. Her father lived in Hamilton, and her mother's up in the community. She lived with her mother, and yes, I spent some time with her, and I did some counseling with her and supported her. Well, you know, so it's all part of that relationship. So these kind of connections are very lifelong kind of things that go along with this in terms of that kind of commitment and realizing. And this was back in what year would that be? That would be the year 2001, I believe. Yeah, year 2001. So it was very real in terms of that. And then Stacy came back into my life back in 2005 when I got that program going through Chibougamau Health Authority. It was a camp up north of Pickle Lake called Crystal Lake. And so I brought all these kids together from all these different 5 communities, and there were like maybe 30 of them. And I had chaperones from each community. And I got together with those chaperones before we actually got together as a camp, and I trained them a bit in regards to preparing them as to how we're going to work with the youth who come to that camp for safety reasons. So we're able to have a safe experience. So these are all the different kind of things I learned when I worked at Outward Bound in terms of setting things up to make sure we have a safe experience. You know, that's the whole idea of why Outward Bound still exists today, is because of their policies, procedures around safety. Yeah. The language and the land, like I say, the language is very much connected to our Creator, or connected to our belief system in terms of the land. And so the language, when you look at the word Anishinaabe, for example, Anishinaabe, Nishin to our people, it means good. So when you put that Anishinaabe in there, it means good spirit, good person, good being. And so within that, responsibilities within itself, that's why we became caretakers of our territories, caretakers of the land. Like we say, we don't really own it. We're caretakers. We take what we need from the land. We subsist off of it. We don't go kill all the moose. We don't go exploit it. And that's very much a belief system that we hold within that in terms of respecting it. But as well, though, what that land provides, you know, it provides us with this air, the water, the plants, the animals, the fish. From all this, you know, you get all these rich medicines and nutrients and all these. And that's why our people were so healthy throughout the years, because we utilized all that, you know. And then next, you know, colonization happened. We have flour and all these different oats, and now we have this word called gluten-free. I don't know what the heck the other kind of terms are called. It's mind-boggling for me, but I don't know, celiac. That's another word. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's like, but it's a very, very real conditions based on our digestive systems of what our system will accept and won't accept. And next, you know, I'm diabetic. That's a reality. So I'm down here for my appointments to see specialists here in Toronto because of my diabetics. And I come to know that I have a fatty liver from my addictions issues when I was in my early 20s. I have to see a specialist for that. And so I very much walk the path of take care of yourself. I take care of myself. It's very real within that. Eating right, exercising, walking, and helping out as much as I can. Wherever I go. It doesn't matter where I go. I do what I can to help whoever. There's a significance of that within our spiritual traditional beliefs around that. And that, so there's our spiritual beliefs are very much dimensional within our thinking and our belief systems. And it can be mind-boggling, but it's really as simple as opening up a coffee for an old man whose arthritis in his hands are like this. He can't open his coffee, and I'm sitting there. I see him struggling. And I put my hand on his shoulder, "Can I help you?" And he said, So I get the feeling of gratefulness and thankfulness from doing that. And so there's a spiritual dynamic kind of happening there in terms of that belief systems. So these are the kind of things in terms of things as simple as that in terms of that context is very real within the Anishinaabe way of thinking and the Anishinaabe way of life. And our people are starting to go back to that. It's not to say we're all there in regards to that, because of this toss up of reconciliation, some of our people are still caught in that dilemma of the anger and resentment and all these different things. But we need to help guide them back to that when they're ready. I go back to my brother. When he's ready, I'll go help him. If he's sick and hitting bottom, I'll go help him. But I'm not going to go there when he's using and tell him, take that away from him and end up getting into a fight with him. It's not our way. So, okay. So the other parts of this is program development and services. And, we have mental health and addictions in terms of the kind of services that can come out of this. And okay, yes, thank you. Sorry. So the other areas of how of where the avenues of where that can go into is in terms of helping our people is through mental health facilities, CAS. We're bound to have Women in Courage program, and so there's the employee assistance programs in high school. Students, reintegrate them back into it who are having struggles and try and keep them in school, figure out what's going on with them. So in a way, and getting back to that understanding around that Anishinaabe of the good being, caretaker, as our path of reconciliation and understanding what kind of relationship do we work with and helping and understanding how we're going to coexist. It's very real that we're here, we're all in this together. So the concept of within it, we very much are protectors, Anishinaabe people of our territories. We have a responsibility of doing that. And in terms of the concept around developing and opening the mind up and around this is to look at it a way of how you can become allies within it. Of finding ways of being able to say, hey, I can take a step back and help and play a role of understanding and seeing what you can do to be part of that. And so within that, being able to be aware of that aspect of it, because the conscious other part of this is the not getting caught up into the rescuer mode, being able to, can I help? How can I help? This is what I can do. Being able to offer that, and so it's being able to work within that and being able to walk with us, walk with us in terms of this, and helping each other, and that's and what this does in terms of taking care of things, and go back into our systems of being able to survive in the bush, take care of things. And what do we get after that in terms of taking care of things? When we take care of things and being able to do those things to fix a wound and whatever else, what do we do? The result of that is you have peace of mind. You have that connection in regards to, hey, I can sleep at night now, kind of. So being able to understand that connection and being able to do those kind of things around the belief system. So, miigwech. If you have any questions, I'd be, or comments or whatever, I'd be open to that.